She's losing herself.
You? I destroyed you with my own hands.
This relic is a seed that will sprout our future.
You have the ability to accept the Queen's blood.
The cage is unlocked.
Please, save everyone.
Code Vein. Wow, where to start? This is a game that seems to be equally loved and hated in the Souls community, and after spending over 30 hours logging down its long, repetitive corridors and fighting against the same reskin enemies over and over again, I came away completely befuddled as to why some people find this game so interesting. Maybe it's the story, which comes off as a 10-season anime stuffed into a 4-hour info dump, so thick with lore it's almost indecipherable to all but the most attentive of players. Anime aficionados might enjoy this, and I certainly like a bit of world building myself, but when the only way to get most of the expedition is to walk very, very slowly through an NPC's memories, it soon becomes boring, especially when you have to do it for the 14th or 15th time. The basic premise, if you're interested, is that you are a sexy androgynous vampire that can gain the powers of blood codes of others by reliving their memories. The enemies in the game are known as the Lost, undead who have gone without blood for so long it's driven them mad. Several years ago, a large number of Lost were killed by a woman vampire named Cruz, although the effort drove her into a frenzy and she was consequently killed in turn by her own father. Things get increasingly complicated from there onwards, with not one but two amnesic characters, a sister with a half-frenzied brother, the obligatory mad scientist, and as I'm sure you can guess, the suspicion Cruz is not quite as dead as everyone thinks. Hint, she's a vampire. The game mechanics themselves are incredibly similar to Dark Souls. You go from one zone to the next, finding bonfires and unlocking shortcuts. The only real innovation here is that while you do level up through conventional means, your stats are actually governed by what blood code you have picked, as these determine things like poise, weapon scaling, and encumbrance, among other things. You can switch between these on the fly, which allows for a certain amount of flexibility, but while some players will certainly enjoy its simplicity, I found it far too restrictive. One of the joys of games like Dark Souls is that you can fine-tune your build to fit your playstyle, but I never really found a way to do that effectively here. For example, as a fan of strength builds, I quickly gravitated towards the Atlas code, that allowed me to wear heavy armor and wield big swords at the cost of movement and dodge speed. Thing is, I like having a great sword and being able to dodge, which is impossible from the get-go here. I had to learn all the skills from the Atlas code, then switch to a different code, and learn all the skills from there, none of which was fun. I wouldn't mind suffering for all that if the combat was fast and addictive. Unfortunately, it's neither, with no reliance of you getting swarmed by enemies that stunlock you or knock you out of your attack animation mid-swing. I found the moveset to be really finicky too, especially the running attack, which sometimes ended with an overhead swing and sometimes with a thrust attack, and I'm still not quite sure why. Your heavy attacks do the most amount of damage, but I ended up abandoning these entirely after realizing that they're constantly interrupted, and that 2 or 3 light attacks do as much damage and fill my ichor, or magic points, roughly the same amount. Finally, I've carefully avoided talking about the jiggle physics here. But even without diving into the waifu aspect of the game, you have to admit that having characters run through the snowfields and ice lakes of one of the levels dressed in what basically amounts to bra and panties is maybe a little underdressed. Or I guess vampires just don't feel the cold? I don't despise anime by any stretch of the imagination, I just don't think it's a great fit for a Souls-like, and the cumbersome way Bandai Namco has chosen to dole out its story beats just doesn't work. The blood code system was an interesting idea that failed to grip me either, as I dislike not having sufficient control over my character's growth. If neither of these things bother you, then maybe give Code Vein a try, but I myself find it difficult to recommend, and I'll be placing it just above Ashen and Let It Die on the D tier. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.